I have been to every college football stadium. I have been ranking every single one by conference. We are on to our fourth with the SBC. In my opinion, this is the most prideful G5 conference. I imagine like 10 of these 14 football stadiums would make the case they have the best stadium in the conference. I've also been a guest of more universities in this conference than anywhere else, which is just going to make it even harder to give low rankings to places that treated us really well. But as unbiased as I can possibly be, we will proceed. Before we begin, please know, although I've been to all of these stadiums, I've not been to a game at all of these stadiums. We are not considering any in-game experience that comes with this. These rankings are not that serious. Even if your favorite stadium was ranked lower than you'd like it to be, I promise it does not come from a place of hate. For the first time in this series, I'd even say I don't think one stadium in this conference is actually bad. And if you do like what you're hearing, make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing to keep up with the next videos coming out. Here's the conferences that we already done. Here's the ones that we're going to do in order of how we're going to do them. Ending with the grand finale video, ranking every single stadium that we've been to in college football from the bottom to the top. I think that's enough of a spiel. Let's get into it. Beginning at the very bottom, number 14, I'm going to put in right here Louisiana Lafayette's Cajun Field. This is closer to a DQ than a last place finish because it was a construction site when I visited, and it will be until the start of next season. This right here is what it looked like when we arrived, and this is what it's going to look like upon completion. Likely not the worst stadium when that is done. It's fun to see stadiums get blown up, but projects aren't fun to rank, so we're going to wait till next year for the Swamp. This is the original Swamp, by the way, too. Louisiana had the name first, and then Steve Spurrier did it at Florida 3 years later. At number 13, we are staying in the state of Louisiana at Malone Stadium for Louisiana Monroe. This was one of the later stadiums I hit, and I saw a lot of hate for it before I arrived, but I don't think it's all that bad. This stadium is your classic concrete behemoth. Just nothing at all has been done to it in a decade, and nothing major in closer to 3 decades. There's also just not any features to it that's particularly interesting. I didn't see that much of note in person, so I tried Googling some fun facts, and all I got back was the most basic information of any stadium ever. But hey, shout out to wheelchair accessibility. You're really separating yourself from the pack with that novelty. At number 12, I'm going to put Jones C. Edwards Stadium at Marshall. This, like Malone Stadium, although clearly a little bit better, is still pretty forgettable. It reminds me a lot of Ohio University Stadium nearby. They both got the same color scheme, they both roll off the hills of the Appalachian, they both were MAC stadiums at one time, and we found critters inside both of the stadiums. The reason Marshall is so much lower in their ranking than Ohio was in the MAC ranking, though, really is just a testament to how far we've come in the level of stadium we're dealing with, even just in the G5 level. The stadium is fine, it's just structurally really basic with not that much unique about it. And for what it's worth, the view of the hills at Ohio is just a little bit better than Marshall's. This is also surprisingly the biggest stadium in the conference. Just based on being there and looking at it, I did not think this would be that big at all. I actually didn't think it'd be like even top 3 in the conference. At number 11, I have Turner Field. Former home of the Atlanta Braves, former home of the Summer Olympic opening ceremony, and current home of Georgia State football. This place gets a bump because the uniqueness of playing in a repurposed MLB stadium sparked enough interest in me that I would like to go back for a game at least one time. Whereas a Marshall or a ULM does not bring enough to the table that would compel me to come back on the stadium alone. Or maybe I just have some extra curiosity about Georgia State because the one time I was there, I got kicked off the property before I could check it out. It's a cool novelty, but also a little bit unserious. And the rest of the conference is in such a tight race of good G5 stadiums. I could not in good conscience put this place above any of them. It's actually such a tight race, I couldn't even have the prettiest little stadium in America crack single digits. Yes, that is the official nickname of Georgia Southern's Paulson Stadium, who we have at number 10. The nickname fits it perfectly. When I go to Georgia Southern, I say, this is a pretty little stadium. I don't say, oh my gosh, this is setting new standards for G5 football. They are in kind of a tough spot though. Georgia Southern's inception is one of the cooler stories in the sport, and the simplicity is a foundational piece of that. Their current uniforms look like practice uniforms because at one time, they were practice uniforms. All they had the budget for was that and a blue piece of tape when the program started in 1982. Along with the $2 they saved up for school buses to transport the team that still stay perched at the top of the stadium to this day. It's a really cool story that their fans should take pride in. But that detail isn't communicated super well around the stadium. And coming here for the first time, if I didn't know any better, I would think this is a pretty average place to watch a football game. The one thing above average, though, is having a Zaxby's at the concession stands. That is Statesboro's #1 export, and number 1 in my chicken finger rankings. At number 9, I'm going to have Ballard Stadium at Old Dominion. This stadium is tight. There's about as little space as possible between the field and the seats. The 2 upper decks on each sideline overlap with the lower sections a lot. And in the end zone where you have the premium spots, it sits almost vertically, like you would see it like a horse race or a NASCAR track. I take this as a net positive though. It would make the place feel louder, and it allows it for it to be in a pretty walkable part of campus. And it's the second newest stadium in the conference, just being built in 2019, so everything is really up to date. I think it counts as a new stadium. The old one was failing building code, so they just scrapped everything on the same site and built a new one on top of it. But nonetheless, I do wish they kept some homage to the crescent style bleachers. That is a dying breed that needs to be preserved. At number 8, I have Brooks Stadium at Coastal Carolina, which most of you recognize as a surf turf. This stadium actually sits very similarly to Old Dominion's. They're both compact, and they're both one of the smaller stadiums in the conference. Coastal's branding, though, obviously puts them over the top. Where Group of 5 football really wins, and can win even more in my opinion, is positioning themselves as a more fun version than their larger counterparts. Coastal does as good of a job with that as anybody in college football right now. There's a lot of no-nonsense culture in college football that I find uninviting to a casual fan, especially from a program that doesn't have the history to warrant taking themselves so seriously. It is just refreshing that in 2025, you can watch a football game on a teal field while sipping beers at a patio behind the end zone and watch sea chickens ride motorcycles at the same time. Not to mention it's going to be a fraction of the cost, and for the right season, the product on the field might be better too. The lopsided legend, Bridgeforth Stadium at James Madison. This one clip from my visit there really says all you need to know about it. I can't get over how this side of the stadium looks gorgeous. Honestly, power conference level. And then on the other side, these might as well be high school bleachers. If this place was symmetrical, it would not only be up there with one of the best stadiums in the Sun Belt, but one of the best stadiums in the Group of 5. I don't have it ranked at the bottom because, you don't have to sit in the limp side of the stadium. And to be honest, some have said that's even the better side of the stadium to sit in. But all that aside, it's a great location for a stadium. Anywhere in the place you're going to sit, you're going to get a good view on the field and of the scenery around it. That's pretty good too. But at 50% the best stadium and 50% the worst stadium, putting it right in the middle at a firm number 7, that just feels right to me. At number 6, we are going to have the newest stadium in the conference, Whitney Stadium at South Alabama. Of course, every stadium under 5 years old is going to be pretty nice. It just doesn't have a whole lot of charm. It's a lot of metal. It's on campus, which is a step up from their previous stadium, but it's not like a scenic area at all. It honestly feels a little comparable to UAB Stadium up the road that we ranked in the AAC video. Very solid spot to watch a game. It works really well for several things. That's the reason they have a bowl game that's hosted here, and they host a Senior Bowl here every single year. It just doesn't really have an identity yet that I think a fan base would rally around or really be super prideful about. The foundation is there though. South Alabama is just a newer program that needs the right team playing in it. At number 5, we're going to stay in the same state on the complete opposite side of everything I said about South Alabama. This is where we're going to find Veterans Memorial Stadium at Troy. Prettiest little stadium in America is Georgia Southern's thing. I'm not going to take that away from them, but the vet at Troy also embodies that really well. This stadium is every bit as good as South Alabama's, but they do such a good job capturing the charm that makes Troy exactly what it is. If you were to set a movie in the most picturesque, classic small southern school, Troy University fits that casting to a T. The vibes are phenomenal. The facility behind the end zone is really good aesthetic, something I think a lot of schools don't put that much focus into. And their NFL wall inside made of Trojan helmets is just too cool not to mention too. It's not over the top impressive, but I really love when a campus is uniform, and if Troy added anything more to the vet, I think it would be doing too much to take away from that. We've made it to my hottest take on the list. At number 4, I'm putting Kid Brewer Stadium at App State. Let's get the good out of the way first. Hear me out. This is the most scenic stadium east of the Mississippi. I recognize that. It's ranked this high because of that. Now be honest with yourself. Is Kid Brewer Stadium, the structure itself, actually an impressive stadium? Not really. The concourse is old. There was very obviously a track around it that makes the seats a little bit far away from the sideline. And those seats don't connect at all to make it a bowl. The end zone and the sidelines are completely separate. Layout wise is really just a bigger version of Ball State with bleachers on each side of the field and then a hill behind the end zone that doesn't have one. And that's considered one of the less impressive stadiums in the FBS. But the other reason is number 4 that I didn't really put together until I made this video and kind of pissed me off when I figured it out, extends into number 3, which is the Real Rock, Southern Miss. First off, unbelievable, 2 teams with the same color scheme in the same conference have the same nickname for their stadium. Second off, Southern Miss had their nickname for the stadium 40 years before App State did. On principle, the original has to be ranked above the copy. And third off, the Rock origin story of Southern Miss is way cooler than App State's. In 1938, permanent concrete stands, which also housed dormitory space for student athletes, were built on the east side of the field with the help of Southern Miss football players hauling the concrete. It was from this, hauling concrete blocks, that the stadium received the nickname The Rock, in reference to prison work crews, none of which were used to build the stadium. Important point to add. Imagine when we went to Kansas while they were working on their renovation project, if we just came across Jalen Daniels in a Hy-Vee laying concrete. That is exactly what happened at Southern Miss 90 years ago. That is fantastic history. As for App State, I'm sure the locals and the alumni know the answer to this, but I searched far and wide online to find out why Kid Brewer Stadium is called The Rock, and I could not find anything. Honestly, the most information I got was from my own video where I passed by the physical rock outside the stadium, and all it says is Steve Shipwash, class of 1978. I deeply apologize that this is somebody that passed away a long time ago and I'm downplaying their legacy. But when I searched that name, all I found was this guy, and this LinkedIn bro from outside of Raleigh certainly is not our guy. But outside of that, The Rock is legitimately a pretty impressive stadium. It's the second biggest stadium in the conference behind Marshall, and both of those are over 5,000 seats bigger than anybody else. And they have the program to fill it too. They were a horrendous 1-11 last year and still outdrew half the conference in attendance. The end zone additions they made in 2008 also hold up pretty well, some high-level premium sections, and the Eagle Plaza they have on the other side by the facility does really add some character to the whole place. The only thing holding it back behind the other 2 stadiums is it just feels a little bit old. But I think some tweaks around the concourse that would be affordable in the grand scheme of stadium expenses could fix it. And now to our runner-up in our Sun Belt Conference stadium rankings, we have Bobcat Stadium at Texas State. They just had some credit union sponsor it recently, but I didn't bother to remember the acronym. This stadium has had the most impressive 20-year transition in college football. This right here is a picture of Bobcat Stadium from 2005. And this is it right now. I'm trying to imagine like a Sam Houston State having one of the best G5 football stadiums like a decade from now, and that is unfathomable to me. I don't know how Texas State pulled this off. This choice might be more personal taste than anything, but I think their stadium is so clean. Off the top of my head, this is the only double-decker true horseshoe stadium, and going with the stone exterior with the arch entrances, beautiful. They're still working on it too. I only got on the field because of the work, and it looks even better now. I would love to go back. They seem like my kind of people out in San Marcos. And lastly, the number 1 Sun Belt stadium I left the most impressed with, Centennial Bank Stadium at Arkansas State. There is not a school in the group of 5 doing more with what they have than Arkansas State. Most stadium rankings I've seen have a hard time separating the people from the place, and I don't think this would be number 1 on most rankings. It's not in the most scenic area, it's not like the number 1 craziest fan base in the conference, and the team's success has been middle of the pack. But I think tying the program to how good the stadium is pretty lazy, and Arkansas State deserves their flowers for what they have put into this. This place widely exceeds expectations. The most obvious place this is on display is the twin waterfalls in the corners of the end zone. This is the most extra installation in all of college football. There's no reason they need to be there, but they are, and they look so freaking sweet. It's not full bowl style seating, but it's built into a logoed out grass bowl that encloses everything really well. And maybe I'm a little biased because I couldn't explore this place everywhere, but the club and media level and the facility is top notch. I like to reward hard work, and I truly believe Arkansas State built this with the intention to blow people away when they walk in. Or at least that's how I felt when I arrived at Centennial Bank Stadium. Thanks for watching, everybody. Mountain West videos next, followed by the power conferences, followed by ranking every single stadium that we've been to at the very end. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're subbing, make sure you're commenting to keep up on everything. If you're not caught up, I got the rest of the stadium rankings that we've done on some playlists somewhere around the screen. I'm kind of rambling, trying to get this last take off, but shout out to Coastal Carolina too. Shout out to Troy. Shout out to Georgia Southern. Everyone was great hosts to me. And yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate y'all.